We've got a new client today, a very special client, who just happens to be known as ChatGPT. So, here I am role-playing with ChatGPT as if it was a client and needed a fully food-focused landscape. First, the discussion. I had to interview ChatGPT. As you can see, I gave it some very loose parameters. I wanted to give it 1 acre, but I let it choose the area. We're pretending like ChatGPT is a dream client, or just a regular client who's very knowledgeable about their goals. So the first thing is to figure a template property out. So here we go. We have the Zone 8B area, which is what ChatGPT asked for. Once I had looked at the hardiness map and got a rough idea of where I was going, I just had to find a property that was about 1 acre. So I hopped onto Google Earth to zoom in and see what kind of caught my eye. Again, I'm using somebody's real property as a simple base. It's not the home here, but it is a real home in Washington State. So I have a little surprise at the end of the video pertaining to that homeowner. What we've got here is the actual property we're going to be designing. So this is a pretty flat area, not too much in the way of tall trees or plants that are in the way. This is an excellent template to start designing and planting. So you can see it's a pretty good backyard, it's going to get a lot of sun. So then we're going to look at the sun. This shows different points throughout the year as the shade encroaches on the property. So you can see that we do get a lot of 6 to 8 hour days of sun, and we get a lot more. Now this shows the hours in the sun. So this way we have another way to look at it and consider what we're going to be getting as far as sun. Then we have one final way to do that, which is actually look at this heat map. So what it's showing us is what parts of the year are going to have full sun. This is an extremely handy visualization tool, and it basically says we're going to have a lot of sun throughout the year. Let's review ChatGPT's goals. So it wants to be more self-sufficient, it wants chickens, it wants a water source, it wants a variety of food, composting and recycling systems. It also wants something like an event field, a greenhouse, other more recreational things. This is to scale in real life. So what we're going to do is create a couple different layers. Next up, we're going to hop on to the property line, and now we're going to model the house real quick. I want to do a good job for the client. So this appears to be a deck. That appears to be an above ground pool. We are going to ignore that. We've got some trees bursting into the property, but by and large, there is not a lot going on. We've got a power line right here, which means that 10 feet into the property will be owned or at least operated by the county, so we can't really do much there due to utilities. So this much space all the way through. Instead of modeling it real quick and putting some kind of silly design on it where we say this is the home where a computer lives and all of its infinite wisdom, this is what it has chosen to do. We're not going to do all that. We are going to focus on the plants. So we're going to hop into the existing vegetation based on ChatGPT's request. Wants a pond, chickens, orchard, a lot of sylviculture, berry bushes, and some other things. We're going to focus on the zone in this area right here. So this area is going to be your zone 1. This is the area that when you go outside, food is very easy to get. We'd want to make use of the grass that's already here. So this is going to really allow us to take advantage of the increased sunlight. Alright, so this is our slope in real life. So the actual property itself is pretty flat. The rain will fall out of the slope and come towards the property, which will incentivize having plants here to then capture and slow the water. That also creates a sense of irrigation. So this property only descends by about 10 feet, and that's over maybe 300 feet. So that's really not too crazy. These slopes right here are obviously going to concentrate quite a lot of water that'll funnel through here. So the topography that shows we're not working with too much of a slope. This can be our more recreational area, given that it has a bit more consistency within its grading. The alternative would be doing something up here, but this is prime real estate given the sun, and from the map it actually looks like this area is a bit marshier. So I think leveling this, grading a bit differently, and then also having that proximity to the house makes more sense. Alright, so this will be our sports field. This is 50 by 100 feet. I like to do multiple layers. We'll have the same plant, and this is representing a mature size of the plant. Now I also like to include a second stage for more privacy. So that's 10 feet from the property line, which is at the road, which means these should be protected from any utility maintenance. This is coming in from the slope, so we're going to keep in mind that this area is going to receive a ton of light and a lot of passive water collection. It's actually going to form a bit of a barrier from the rest of the area as far as passive water collection goes, because this will have such an established root system. What we're going to want to account for next is actually the 5 fruit trees. We have to include 2 nut trees at a minimum, as well as plum, cherry, and apple, and then a couple dwarf or espaliered fruit trees. So we can definitely put a couple trees right here. This will also help create shade on the house. 20 feet, I believe that's the diameter of a mature hazelnut. So that's 2 right there. That's what they'll look like fully grown. We're going to want to do some dwarf plums, cherries, because those are fruits that it's easy to have a surplus of. You're not going to have as much of a use for them. But apples, apple cider, apple sauce, apple pie, other remedies, there's so many things you can do that actually give them tremendous versatility. Given the space we've already taken up with 2 nut trees, we're going to want to have a smaller area for apples. You know, this area is still going to get quite a bit of light. Anything that's in this row, we're not going to want to have it much more than 10 feet. So that really shouldn't impede the light for a fruit tree. So with that, we are going to go here. Alright, so we'll say these are 4 fruit trees. Now within this area, we're going to be mixing in berry bushes, silviculture, and some other things to round out the function. So you can see the home with the property line. This is everything. So we've got the existing vegetation, the new vegetation, the new plants, the house, the driveway, the shed, and the other components. We've got an herb spiral, chicken coop, compost system, greenhouse, outdoor kitchen, vegetable area, raised beds, pond, stepping stones, fire pit, and field for event spaces. So it's a pretty awesome backyard. I would love to grow up here. I mean, seriously. There is hardly any management. I think there was a 2-foot grading to make space for that field, but even that is really small when you look at the overall footprint and its change to the topography. We've got the intense slopes on the south side of the property, so that's going to funnel a lot of rain into the property. So first, we want to make sure that those privacy trees also double as a little barrier to stop the advance of the water and soak it in the ground there. And then that also creates a passive watering process for those plants. So what I like to do is take that outline and then move it into Photoshop and then put in my base colors. I have a template for my color palette, and I insert those in the locations, a specific gray for the driveway if it's asphalt, a specific green for the grass, a specific light brown for more of a DG, decomposed granite, or some kind of like pea-berry gravel pathway. So those indicate those things, and then I'll go in there and make it a little bit more artistic. Then I take my custom plant brushes and I go over everything so that it looks a little bit clearer. It's not a perfect architectural drawing. This is more of a stylized version. So the area I'm working on here is around the pond. So we've got a little riparian habitat, a little annual stream. It's not perennial, but then that's going to contribute to a little bit more of a humid environment given that pond right there. There's a difference of, I want to have a berry bush, I want to have a chicken or 2 or 3 or 15. And if somebody's only knowledge about berry bushes is, I love blueberries, that's fine. You know, everyone has a different starting point. But when somebody's like, look, I want winterberry hollies, I really want some hosta berries, I'm talking about wine cap mushrooms in the mulch, I want a covered polytunnel, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. When they have these enumerated goals, it really sets the tone, because then you're like, look, I incorporated these specific requests here, we've got it planned out, we've got it accommodated, we took everything you wanted. This is for ChatGPT, and that's something I reminded myself throughout this design. This isn't for a person, this isn't for a real place, it is based on a real place for an artificial entity. So does that change how things happen? Yes, because ChatGPT gave me some really cool and specific goals, and there's a real sense you get when you walk the property and talk to a person face to face. This is another version of that. This is like doing a design digitally, but with someone who's fairly demanding. So when it comes to the demand of the design, you know, the artistic stuff is to create a nice visual, it gets the point across. I often do 3D renders as well. I did not do one for this property. There wasn't really a need, but maybe I'll do that for a follow-up. Comment below if you think I should do a 3D render for this. I'd clone the house, I would create the greenhouse, the trees, everything else, so on and so forth. So the next thing is to just tidy up details, add some textures, add a little bit of flair. Once we had that done, it was really on to the separation of layers. We have the base, the template, without the trees, without the new or existing vegetation. Then we have all the new plants, little decoration to inscribe the new things. Then we've got the trees, we'll get rid of the labels. You can see this is the artistic version. So we've got our paints, our drop shadows, our textures, everything in between. Boom, there's the logo. So see what ChatGPT has to say about it. After all, it is the client. We got to check in, do a little analysis, so you can see how I went through a conversation with ChatGPT. You can pause and read any of it. I'm also going to show you some more here. So I gave it the pictures. It had at first a lot of notes. It gave me some ideas. It gave me feedback, and then it started telling me why the ideas were good. And it's like, are you complimenting yourself or what? So I had to steer it in a certain direction. So this is one of those things where, like, alright, I'm still dealing with an artificial intelligence that's meant to be nice to me instead of it treating me like a client. So I had to give it more of a paragraph than, say, one-line responses at a time. Then I asked it to write a letter for me because I want to send a version to the homeowner. So I wrote a note, and I'm actually going to mail this to the homeowner. I hope they like it. It is totally for free. If you're watching this, I'm going to email you all the files you want. I'd be happy to talk to you about the design. Again, this is totally for fun. I tried to make it anonymous, so hopefully you got some good ideas out of it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Now it's time to mail this letter.